Hello everyone, this screencast is a review of conditionals for those of you who wanted some extra practice and some extra instruction on conditionals. So, like we talked about today in class, there are two main types of conditionals. Yesterday, we talked about this type, real and true conditionals. As we said yesterday, these are conditionals that are happening either in the present or the future, but they're true statements. They're real situations that are happening. And like we talked about, they're a lot like cause and effect. So for example, if it rains today, I will bring an umbrella. So this is a true statement that's happening. We're really talking about the future, and it's like a cause and effect type sentence. Today, however, we introduced a new type, unreal or untrue. So remember, these are conditionals that are unlikely, impossible, and usually they're hypothetical situations. So let's go over some examples. How do we form these conditionals? Well, like we talked about yesterday, the true in the present or future, we use what we call an if clause. And in the if clause, we use if plus the simple present. And then when we go to the main clause, keep in mind that we use will. Will is like our key word here, and we use it with the simple form. So going back to my previous example, if it rains today, rains being in the simple present, I will bring an umbrella. Will and then bring would be my simple form. Today we introduced a new type, untrue in the present and future. So remember, these are situations that are untrue, unlikely, usually hypothetical situations. The form, as you see, is very similar, but a little bit different. So let's take a look at it. So we're still using this if clause, if, but instead of using the simple present, we're actually using the simple past. So this is really tricky, so be very careful. When we're talking about untrue in the present or future, we actually use the past tense. So this doesn't mean that this is something that happened in the past. We are talking about something in the present or the future, but we do grammatically use the past tense, so be very careful and don't get confused by that. So we use if plus the simple past, and in the main clause, we use would instead of will with the simple form. So this is a little bit different, and we're going to go over some examples in a second. Untrue in the past is something we're going to go over tomorrow, so I put it here so you guys can put it in perspective with everything else, but don't worry about it quite yet. We're going to go over that tomorrow. Okay, so let's jump back to true conditionals, quick review. Put 3 examples up on here. If I forget my food, I will not eat my lunch. So again, paying attention to the form, forget in the simple present, will not eat lunch, will plus the simple form of eat. And again, it's a lot like cause and effect. I forget my food, so what happens? I will not eat. This is a real, true situation happening right now in the present or even the future. Example number 2, if I don't study, I will fail the exam. Again, pay attention to the form. Do not study, this is just the simple present. Will fail, this is will plus the simple form of fail. And again, it's a lot like cause and effect. If I do not study, what's going to happen? I will fail the exam. Last example, if I have time, I will watch TV tonight. So again, simple present have, will watch, will plus the simple form of watch. So if I have time, I will watch TV tonight. This is something that's going to happen. If I have time, watching TV is what I'm going to do. True statement. Now, let's jump over to untrue conditionals. This is what we practiced today in class. So, unlike true conditionals, these are untrue. Keyword here, untrue conditionals. So these are a little bit different, and we have to think about it in a different way. So the first example, if I had $1 million, I would travel the world. Okay, so I do not really have $1 million. That's kind of my key hint that this isn't a true conditional. This is untrue. I don't really have $1 million. Therefore, I'm going to use the form like we practiced on the previous slide. If I had $1 million, simple past right here, I would travel the world. Would instead of will, still using the simple form of the verb. So, like I said, I don't really have $1 million, but hypothetically, if I had $1 million, I would travel the world. So again, it's an untrue conditional, it's an untrue statement. Let's look at the second example. If I had enough time, I would go to the concert with you. Again, I don't really have enough time. This isn't reality for me. What's really going on is I don't have enough time. So saying I have enough time is an untrue statement. This is hypothetical. So if I had enough time, I would go to the concert with you. Still using the simple past here, and would with the simple form of go. So I'm saying hypothetically, if I had enough time, I would go to the concert with you. But unfortunately, having enough time is not a reality for me. Let's look at the last example. If I were rich, I would buy a new car. Same thing. I'm not really rich. That is not reality for me. So this is an untrue statement for me. So I form that by using the simple past. Now pay attention. Remember, we talked about be in class today with conditionals. We usually, almost always, use were, whether the subject is plural or singular. It doesn't matter. We always use were. So if I were rich, I would buy a new car. Again, not really rich. Rich is not a reality for me. But if I were rich, hypothetically, I would buy a new car. Okay, so let's try out examples on our own. So I gave you some ideas here, but feel free to use your own. Here's an example for me. So just using this statement, buy a car. I changed this to an unreal conditional like this. If I had extra money, I would buy a new car. Now, having extra money and buying a new car are both just not a reality for me right now. So this makes it an untrue conditional statement for me. However, hypothetically, if I had extra money, I would buy a new car. Okay, so let's try some of these on your own. Again, you can use some of these ideas or you can use your own ideas. It doesn't really matter to me. If you want some feedback on your answers, feel free to email them over to me and I'll look them over the weekend. Or you can bring your answers to class on Monday. Either way, have a great weekend, and I hope this review helped you a lot.